Hey guys, I'm Kate and welcome back to another Coffee with Kate. This is like a chatty, pep talky segment that I do occasionally, usually when I particularly need it, either to like get something off my chest or, in this case, give myself a little bit of a pep talk about starting over. And I'd like to define that. I'd like to talk about, is there such a thing as too many drafts? We're gonna get into it. And the way that you start seeing things in a lot of places, a whole bunch of concepts sort of came together at the same time. The first was that I have been receiving some comments, some strange comments. I think they're all from the same couple people under a few different usernames because the voice is very similar. They all have a recognizable writing pattern, okay? And I think they mean well. And the gist for all of these is that they want me to try this other person's like writing process. They're like, you need to test this out because you can get everything done in just one draft. And like, I really think this is what you need. You need help. Kind of with this idea that you are wasting time if you are taking longer than a first draft or something. Or just this idea of wasting time in general through doing multiple drafts. My good friend Phoebe Wood also made an incredible video about this. It was like 2 months ago and was exactly what I needed to see at that time. Too many drafts. I hate this critique of author tubers. I will link it down below. That and the comments on the video too are incredible. And then as I was looking up some like inspirational quotes for this time, I stumbled upon this one person's idea of a version versus a draft. And also, it's just that time of year, isn't it? It is spring, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. I hear the birds, they are tweeting. It feels like that time of year to start over again or start anew, start afresh. Since I'm doing more Twitch streams again, I feel like I have a better pulse on what people are working on. And I'm hearing a lot of people who are returning to their old NaNoWriMo novel and are either like, oh, what did past me even mean by this? Or even like, this is trash. Or more commonly, once you wiggle past all that, basically being like, I still love the concept, but I think I need to start again. And of course it's Camp Nano, right? That is, I feel like, the time where a lot of people are starting something new or something old that is now new. They're going to make new again. Maybe you're starting a new draft, maybe you're starting over, maybe you're starting a new story completely. And I feel like there's often this struggle with any sort of challenge of the like, even though Camp Nano is much more relaxed, I still feel like there's some problems around the day 10 mark where you just start looking at what you've created, like kind of turning it to the side. You're like, maybe if you squint and look this way, it's better. Oftentimes for me, if it's not day 10, then it's day 20, and it's usually that a character is not doing what I wanted them to or expected them to do, despite me having all the power, right? As the writer. In theory, I should be able to control them, but sometimes it feels like they wrangle free. Oftentimes a plot hole has already come up that I'm already aware about and know I'll need to fix in the next draft or fix later if you don't like calling it a draft. And also for me personally, I am on draft 5 of Project Death, so I know a lot about starting over. And I had this thought where I was actually again on a Twitch stream, and I even asked people, I asked how many people had started something over again, and it was overwhelming, like 96% of people had started a story over. A lot of people wanted to define that, so we're definitely going to do that in this, but briefly, I was finding that I knew I was gonna have to do one more draft. The farther into Project Death I get, where I'm clearing up a lot of plot holes. I'm really tying some threads together that previously were only like in the far reaches of my brain, but now are at the forefront, and it's gonna make the story so much better. I'm so excited. Even some of them that like culminate in one line of dialogue that are just gonna like hit at the end. Like, I was so excited. But as I was writing, I was staring at this computer and I was like, I'm gonna have to do one more draft to make it beautiful. You know, this is still, I'm still draft 5, fixing some plot holes, inconsistencies, the kind of stressy, messy ending. Like that's what I'm fixing on this one. And I'm rewriting it. And maybe we should also, for my sake, define what I mean by rewriting. It's so funny because as writers, we get in a lot of trouble about not knowing what each other means when we say certain things, and yet our world is words. But anyhow, I kind of knew that I was always going to have to go over it one more time after I gave it to Jess. Jess, my CP, was really going to be looking at it for, did I fix the stressy, messy ending, and did I make things just pop more? Is it more lively, despite being about death? And so I always had a hunch that I was going to have to do at least one more draft just to make it prettier. I'm trying to make it pretty as I go, but this time I was sitting there and I was like, you know, this would be, I was finding myself going away from this Project Deathy voice and going to like a closer voice to what my normal voice is. Let me see if I can say voice 5 more times. Project Death is a very serious book, and unlike, say, the Meridian Maps, there's not nearly as many like shenanigans that they can get up to. It is quite serious, and I think I personally love the humor in my fantasy books, even when there's a lot of darkness, and I don't think I did the best job balancing it. So what I find is that the farther back I get into the story, the more humor there is, and I'm like, oh, I need to make sure that the beginning has that same kind of vibe, that same kind of voice. It's just kind of, there's a little bit more playfulness there. And so I actually did that a little bit with some new scenes I added, but not with the voice as a whole. So I was sitting at my computer and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to start this all over again. Which, by the way, is fine. That's what this pep talk's about. It is fun. It is better to realize that you want to change something and then go and change it than like not realize it at all. Or not change it even after realizing it because it's too much work or whatever, you know. It is often said that writing is rewriting. I remember one of the first like book conferences I went to. I love going to book conferences as a writer. I love hearing published authors talk about their process, just and interacting with the people that love their books. It is so cool. But a lot of them basically said, I'm not the best first drafter. I'm not great at that stage, but I am a good rewriter. You know, that's what it is. There's like a, I am willing to put in the time to come back and improve it. And when I'm saying rewrite for me personally, I think sometimes that means different things. With my process, when I start a new draft, I am rewriting it almost completely, in that I am often retyping out all the words, because as I go along, I will change things here and there. It helps me to stay in the voice, despite wanting to now change the voice a little bit. It helps me to stay in it, to just physically retype every part. And some things I do copy and paste whole swaths over, even during the rewrite, but I will still go back and like retype them or scan over them, rereading all of them. Like, that's what I consider a rewrite, and that's often when I define it as a new draft for me personally, is I'm going back to the very beginning, and maybe the beginning doesn't have that many things that needs to change. Like, even for Project Death, the beginning has usually been pretty solid, at least in terms of plot. Even if not a whole lot is changing in comparison, I still go over it and tinker and like try and make it better every time. To me, that's rewriting. To other people, that may not be rewriting. To other people, they might think of a rewrite as I finished the first draft, and to quote Terry Pratchett, the first draft is just you telling yourself the story. That's how I think of my zero draft, even my first draft sometimes too. It's just me telling myself the story. And a whole bunch of it might change. I might completely start over using that phrase after the zero draft, because I've told myself the story and I've figured out what I don't necessarily want. So for my sake, we'll say that rewriting, how I define rewriting, is something that I do really with every draft, is I am rewriting the whole story again. I understand other people's definition of rewrite is like, if I have to start over and I'm scrapping everything, that's a rewrite, and that's valid too. So much of writing, we're all trying to do the same thing, but all of our processes are different. Sometimes they're hugely different, like the people who were commenting and telling me about this one person's ability to do it in one draft. And other times they're minutely different. They're having a zero draft versus a skeleton draft. Sometimes it's just what words work for us better. I remember talking to a friend who just quite literally didn't like the term zero draft, because to him that meant that there was nothing worth anything in it if it was a zero. Also valid. You know, we all work differently. So as I was looking this up after watching Phoebe's video again for my own little pep talk, I found this Reddit thread. I found this one person's comment that I really liked because they broke down how many drafts they usually do. We're gonna put in quotes. Crow 9001, shout out to you, from 3 years ago. To answer the question, how many drafts you need, they said it really depends on your process. I normally do 6 drafts, each with a different goal. 1, the first draft, rough, laying out the bones. The second draft is a cohesion, now it's a story. Third draft is addressing weaknesses, specific areas that I've identified in the prose. For the fourth draft, they said strengths, emphasizing and expanding the things I do very well. Fifth draft is for balance and flow, and the sixth is the final draft, combing for anything I may have missed. Fascinating. Fascinating. I don't know that I would ever necessarily have separated out weaknesses and strengths, but I love that this person has found something that works for them. I think that is really cool. Maybe it's something I'll try in the future. I also really enjoyed this article from Pro Writing Aid. If I scroll to the bottom, can I find out who wrote it? Katja. I thought this was really cool because Katja also explained how long each draft usually takes them. So for the 0 draft, which they called their blocking draft, I love a metaphor intermixed with our drafts. They said it takes them 2 to 4 weeks. The first draft, the objective is scaffolding, and it can take them 1 to 2 months. The second draft, they liken to brickwork, can take them from 4 to 8 months. The third draft, plaster, another 4 to 8 months. And final drafts, they said, can take them from 3 to 6 months. And again, I just find it fascinating how the different process works for other people. Some people will agonize over that first draft, and it will take them a really long time. But then after that, each draft takes them subsequently less time. Most people I know have a similar sort of timing to Katja here, but that does not mean that that is the right way to do it. It just means that most people in my own personal circle do it like that. And finally, if I can find this resource, I will share it. But I can't remember where I saw this in all of my comfort Googling. But I basically saw this person who differentiated between a version and a draft. And for them, they could have as many drafts as it took, and if they had more than one version, it usually took them more drafts. So basically the idea for them was that a draft is like making it better and you're narrowing in on what the perfect story, like the end product will be. The version is if something substantially changes. Like for them, if they realize that actually they needed to add a dual point of view, that's almost a different version of the story. Again, because I've been on so many writing sprints and I have seen people talk about how they realized, oh, I need to go back and change the tense, or oh, I need to go back and add a dual point of view, or oh, I need to go back because I realized that actually this main character is not the most interesting one. It's this character over here. That's where the story is. That does feel like a completely different version. That does feel like starting over. But just as I feel after my 0 draft and my first draft, you know, I'm starting over, but not from nothing. I have not only figured out what doesn't work in the story, if I usually with 0 drafts tend to meander over in a direction that's like not it. So I figured out that's not the story I'm trying to tell, but also I tend to figure out and starting over what I love even more about this concept. And so much of my writing is just, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people's writing is doing a story that I love, and I'm really like gifting this book at the end to myself. Like, this is a version of me that would love this, here you go. Sometimes it's a book that me now wants to read. Other times it's a book that teen me would have really loved to read. You know, but it's always just like such a niche. It's just for myself. And if that requires starting over in order to get it to be the best version, the thing that me wants and me needs, doesn't sound right, it's fine, then that's what I need to do. That is what the story is asking for. I think it can be hard to do that sometimes because there's this idea that like, if you've started over, all that time's wasted. But again, I don't think that's true at all. I think you've learned so much, and no words are really wasted. That's why I like doing all of these silly experiments and challenges, because it's just making me better in other little aspects, and it's fun. It's fun. Writing should first and foremost be fun. And I think if you're writing and you're realizing that it's not fun and it's not working, like, give yourself permission to start over. make it fun this time. So in saying all of this and doing all of this, please do go watch Phoebe's video. Please do let me know how you personally define rewriting and what that means. Is it like me, you're quite literally typing all of it up and rewriting it and like tinkering as you go along, including the big rewrites, or is it like only when it's a completely different version of the story? Do you personally think in terms of version versus draft? And let me know what you think starting over means. Is it how I often think of it sometimes as going back to the beginning when I say I'm starting over? Or does that mean checking out the whole thing and starting new? I would love to know. And if you needed it, I need it. This is your gentle reminder that no matter how you define it, it is okay to start over. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an incredible Camp NaNoWriMo if you are participating. Otherwise, I hope you have a great April. A great April of writing. And I will see you all very soon. Bye.